And we are back. Power rankings. Week 4 of the NFL. Well, excuse me, week 5 of the NFL season. We're going to get right into it. Starting out at number 32, staying the same, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars, the only winless team remaining after they fell to the Houston Texans 24-20. They honestly looked pretty good that game. They were able to keep Houston at bay the whole time. They were winning for majority of the game until Houston took the go-ahead touchdown, and, well, that was it. So, I mean, Jacksonville did look good that game. However, they did lose, and they are the only winless team, so it just kind of makes sense for them to be the worst team. At number 31 is going to be the 1-3 Cleveland Browns, as they will be going down a spot after they fell 20-16 to the Raiders. This was kind of another one where it was a good game by Cleveland in terms of what you'd expect from them, which isn't a lot. You know, it was a close game the whole time. Unfortunately, they fell short at the very end. And the big issue with Cleveland is you see they're keeping these games close. They're just not able to win, and that's a big part due to Deshaun Watson. I feel like this team would be competing for the playoffs if they had to legit any other quarterback in the league. I think if you're Cleveland, I honestly think at this point in time, it's best to move on with Jameis Winston, at least for this season. Because Deshaun Watson's only holding you guys back, and I understand you're paying him a lot of money, but sometimes you just got to cut your losses. And, well, I mean, you have too many good players that you're paying top money to, waste the season on because you're trying to justify the signing and trade you made for a predator. Number 30, we have the Dolphins. They're going to be going down 4 spots. They're 1-3. They fell to Tennessee on Monday night, 31-12. And it wasn't a great game. I'm just going to be honest. It was one where it was very boring. It started out with just field goals. And then, well, the Titans just pulled away. So, sorry, Dolphins, but that game was pretty bad. And, I mean, you guys have an excuse, unlike teams like the Browns, where you are without your quarterback. And, well, as much as you want to justify a Pro Bowler in Tyler Huntley, I don't think he's very good. 29, we have the Titans up 2 spots after they, as we were just talking about, pick up the win. That was a very good game by them. Very slow start, however, when they started to get, things going, they pulled away, never really looked back. The big concern is the slow start. It wasn't like, you were playing against a top-tier team. You were playing against the Dolphins, who are one of the more injured teams in the league. And I understand they do have a pretty good defense, and I do also understand that, yes, Will Levis did get injured. However, Mason Rudolph did not look bad in, his place. So I think if you're the Titans, you are probably going to have to chalk this season up to a loss. And honestly, as sad as it is to say, you might want to be looking at a quarterback because I don't necessarily know if Will Levis is the answer going forward. 28, we got the G-Men. They're going to be staying the same. They barely lost 20-15 against the Cowboys. The big issue with them was they were actually doing very well that game. They allowed a top-tier team offensively in the Cowboys to 20 points through 4 quarters, which is impressive on its own. And you scored 15 points, which would be impressive if you're able to score a touchdown. I feel like the reason you guys lost that game was because you had to settle for 5 field goals. I mean, if really just one of those would have gone a different way, we're talking about a whole different ball game in terms of momentum. But you guys weren't able to get that momentum going. You're able to just have to settle for field goals over and over again. And that, in my opinion, is what caused you to lose that game. 27, we have the Raiders. They're going to be going up 2 spots. They're 2-2 after they pick up a 2016 win over the Browns. It was a pretty good game by the Raiders. They were playing it very slow, very methodically, and that's the beautiful thing about the National Football League. You might hear my cat in the background, I'm sorry. Hi, JJ. Is you don't have to do well to win. You don't have to, it's not like the college football where, you're going to have to blow teams out of the water or you're going to have to beat other good teams. If you finish with a better record, you are better than that team in terms of, playoff situation. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter. The Chiefs could finish 9-8, the Raiders 10-7, and even though the Chiefs had a way better season, it would go to the Raiders. And I mean, I don't think the Chiefs are going 9-8, nor do I think the Raiders are going 10-7. That was just an example. But Raiders, you got the win, but I do have you at 27 because power rankings is not, the same as the playoff picture. 26, we have the Panthers. They're going to be going down a spot as they end up losing 34-24 to the Bengals in a game that was very close. Something I really noticed about this Panthers team is Andy Dalton, and I think, they should probably roll with him for the near future, is Andy Dalton is actually winning games and keeping them in games. 24 points against the Bengals is, in my opinion, not a big accomplishment because their defense has not looked great so far this season. However, we also have to talk about this was the Panthers team that before that, I believe, scored a total of 13 points in 2 games. So, fair job, Panthers. 25, we have the Patriots. They're going to be going down 3 spots. They fell 37 or 30. Let me check. It was they lost embarrassingly, 30-13 to the 49ers in a game that wasn't even close. And we're talking about the 49ers who are missing Christian McCaffrey and a lot of other players who are playing injured, like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. So they, aren't at their full strength. And it still wasn't a close game. So I believe the Patriots tricked us in week 1. And, well, we're starting to see what they really are. Number 24, as we enter the next phase, will be the Rams, who are going to be going down a spot. Same thing with them. They have a close week 1. They get blown out week 2. They win week 3. But now you're losing to the Bears in week 4. I don't know what to think of the Rams. They're a very iffy team. It looks like 1 week they do good, 1 week they do bad. And that's not going to cut it if you're looking for long-term success. You might be able to sneak into the playoffs with that logic. However, trying to make any, run to the Super Bowl is not going to happen. And, well, for the Rams, they're 1-3. I think they are one of the worst teams. And part of that probably is due to the lack of Puka Nacua with, him being on IR. Yeah, I think that they're starting to realize that they have a good team. It's just when everyone's on the field. And, well, not everyone's on the field. 23, we got the team who beat them week 2. The Cardinals down 3 spots. This is kind of the same thing where they kept it close week 1. They dominated week 2. They kept it close week 3. And then the Commanders just come marching in and destroy you guys. And this is another thing of why you're keeping it close with top teams in the 1-loss Bills and the 1-loss Lions. Yet, here you are and blowing out the Rams who only have 1 win. And yet, here you are with the Commanders who are in the same situation as the Bills. Same situation as the Lions. And you get blown out. So, I don't know what's going on with the Cardinals. I think they have potential to be a really good team. Don't know if it will come this season or next or, the one after, so on. But I really do like them. And I just don't know because they're keeping up with good teams. But then they have this week with the Commanders where it kind of throws everything I've been seeing out the window. 22, we have the Bears are going to be going up 5 spots. This is a team who I think has a chance to go big because we've seen their defense. Their defense is one of the best in the league, if not the best. The big issue is the offense, where they're struggling to score points. And because of that, no matter how well their defense does, it's never enough because all the other team has to do is really score, below average at points, and it seems to be enough. I mean, here we have the Rams almost winning with only scoring 18 points. So I think when this offense picks up, as long as the defense keeps doing what it has been doing, we could be talking about the Bears as one of the best teams in the league. However, as it stands, the offense has not done anything truly impressive. DeAndre Swift finally got going, so that's good to see. But I'm not sold on you guys until that offense starts clicking. And it's pretty much going to come down to Caleb Williams. 21, we have the Bengals going up 3 spots. They finally get their first win, 34-24 over the Panthers. And we knew the Bengals, had potential after, week 1 where they sucked. But weeks 2 through 4, their offense has been killing it. The big issue is their defense, as you scored 33 points as an example in week 3, and that wasn't enough to win. It's not often that we say that in the NFL, where scoring 33 points isn't enough to win. And I think that's the big issue with the Bengals, is their offense is doing well, but their defense is allowing these other teams to stay in the game to where the offense has to then either keep up with, the other team or, push ahead. And ultimately, it seems that offense is not quite able to do everything. It's the same thing as the Bears, where the defense can't do everything. So if the defense is able to figure it out, I think the Bengals will be, back to rolling. However, I think even without it, they still have a chance because it might just result in shootouts every week. But that's also not something you want to rely on. 20, we have the Jets down 13 spots after a 10-9 loss to the Broncos. And that's why I'm dropping you guys so far down, is you're struggling against the Broncos. The Broncos are looking like a top-tier team, as we're actually going to quickly go up to 19 as well. The Broncos up a spot after they win 10-9. The big issue for both these teams was the fact that it was a total of 19 points scored. And I understand it was a big concern with the weather because it was not ideal for, any quarterback, no matter how adjusted you could be to the rain. And it got to that kind of point where teams knew that it was going to be runs majority of the game, and when it was passes, even if it was open, the quarterbacks would often miss it because, well, their gloves and hands were wet, causing the ball to, slip out and stuff like that. So I do think both these teams have a lot of potential. However, it also just showed that when it comes down to rain, the weather might be a factor for both these teams. And not in a good way. Number 18, we have the Cowboys down a spot. I never thought I'd be saying this, that the Cowboys might suck. But you're 2-2, so you have a respectable record so far. But your 2 wins have come against the Giants by 5 points and the Browns in week 1. So, they have that rust. And now that we're looking at the Browns, they don't look like a great team either. So you've really just beat 2 horrible teams, and the one dominant one being week 1, while your other games have, resulted in losses. And conveniently enough, they've been against, I would say, I don't know if I'd say good teams. I mean, let's take a look. If I can quickly find them. The Ravens were 1, and you guys, pulled off a fluke comeback that didn't happen. And the other one was the I don't know what the other one was. I'm looking. I don't see Cowboys on this list anywhere, so I know I'm skipping over it. The Saints, where you got blown out. How did I forget that one? So, yeah, you guys, I don't know. You're winning against good teams and you're struggling against bad teams. So, it looks like you're a middle-of-the-pack team, which is why you're at 18. 17, we have the Chargers down 4 spots. They ended up losing 17-10, I believe, or something like that, to the Chiefs. Indeed it was. And it was a great fought game by the Chargers. They were winning majority of that game. They were up 10-0 at one point, but they allowed the Chiefs to score 17 unanswered. And this is also the Chiefs team that usually struggles in September. Well, I mean, when we say struggle, that means they do worse than all the other months. But for the Chiefs, that doesn't mean a whole lot considering how well they do in the other months. And this was also a Chiefs team who was without Isaiah Pacheco and lost Rashee Rice at some point in that game to what looks to be season-ending injury. So I'm only dropping you this far because of I believe other teams are better than you. But I do think that once we kind of reach this Cowboys part of the list, that the list gets a whole lot more complicated between the next team up and the next team down. I feel like a lot of these teams are very close so far this season, so it's very hard to rank them. 16, we have the Steelers going down 7 spots. They struggled that game. 27-24 loss to the Colts. In a game where the Colts kind of dominated. Same thing with how we were just talking about the Cowboys in that Saints game, where the Steelers attempt to make a comeback and they fall just short. Or did I say Saints? I meant the Ravens game, where I'm gonna acknowledge it. However, because it was a valiant effort and it was a good effort at that. However, what we need to talk about is why you were even in that situation. Your defense is one of the best in the league. You've allowed your opponents to score like 10 points in an 18-10 lead, or win, and some other ones. Sorry, I can't quite remember final scores off the top of my head. So you guys shouldn't be in this situation because you don't have the greatest offense. Your offense kind of relies on defense. Your offense did a good job in coming back, so we know it has potential. However, I think, unless you have that defense playing good every week, you're not going to win a lot of games. And, we saw it right there where the Colts got out to an early lead, and they were just able to coast on from there. Speaking of, we're just going to skip over the Colts at 15, up 6 spots. I mean, we know they did amazing. Joe Flacco did his job. It wasn't even Anthony Richardson, so good for him. It was kind of a bit of both, I should say, actually. 14, we have the Texans down 3 spots. This is a situation where the Texans are, on paper, a good team because they're 3-1, and they, you're winning games. That's all that matters in the NFL. Like I said, it's not necessarily about how well you win the games or what team to beat. It comes down to what's your record at the end of the season. You could have the easiest strength of schedule, finish 11-6. And, the team who had the hardest schedule could finish 10-7. You would get the advantage because of record, not because of, anything like that. It's not like college football. But that's why you guys are at 14 on my list, is because you haven't played anyone who stands out in my eyes besides the Vikings. And do we need to talk about what happened in that game? You guys lost 34-7. You barely beat the Jaguars. So that in itself is, concerning. And I don't think you've beaten anyone else really of major mentioning. You beat the Bears, who, like I said, I'm not very high on at the moment. And the other team you beat was the Colts, who, fair enough to that one. They've done decently so far. But point is, you guys are really struggling so far this season, but you're winning games, so that's why I have you at 14, and plus, I still believe. 13, Saints. 12, Falcons. The Saints down 7 spots. The Falcons staying the same. The Falcons won off of a either 56 or 58-yard game winner to win 26-24. If this was a really good game, these two teams are going at it the whole time. And it really showed that both these teams can compete. And I think the NFC South should be one of the more interesting games, especially because we have the Falcons and Buccaneers playing each other this Thursday night. Won't tell you who I have, picking for the win until predictions. So stay tuned until tomorrow. But I really like both these teams. The Saints obviously did well the first 2 weeks. They've kind of slowed down these final these past two, but they have kept it close against good teams, the Falcons and the Eagles. That's no thing to write home about. And then the Falcons, we also need to talk about, which is ironic that, as you may notice, I do have the Eagles ahead of them. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I do believe the Falcons are one of the better teams. You see them beating these teams, the Saints, the Eagles. They have a chance to beat the Buccaneers. It looks like they just really struggled at the beginning of the season with, some matches they probably shouldn't have lost, example being the Steelers. But now they're starting to get their rhythm going, and I think they'll be fine. 11, we have the Eagles. They're going to be going down 6 spots. And the reason I have the Eagles going down is because of how well they've done in their wins and their game against the Falcons. Right, in their wins, they beat the Packers by 5 points. The Packers are a very good team. As you can tell, I still haven't named the Packers yet. And they also beat the Saints, and held them to 12 points. So that's a lot to cheer about. And then they only lost to the Falcons by 1 score, and it was a game where the Eagles arguably shouldn't have even lost. But the big issue is you go against the Buccaneers, you get destroyed by 3 scores, and now it's all of a sudden, well, what's going on? Because this is the same Eagles team who for the past 2 seasons were, I believe, the final undefeated team, and yet here we are now. They already have 2 losses, and they're not even in the top 10 in my power rankings, so yeah. Number 10, we had the Packers. They're going to be staying the same. They lost 31-29 to the Vikings. However, they were once down 28-0. And once again, the Packers, as I mentioned about the Cowboys-Ravens game, were down 28-0. They clawed their way back. It just wasn't enough. And what we really need to talk about the Packers is how close that game actually was with what they had. They had a kicker who missed 2 field goals. So, as a Packers fan, I'm still very sad that, we haven't found a kicker, and it's been, 3 years. We had a shit year from Mason Crosby, then Anders Carlson, and now Braden Narvison. Just get us a good kicker, man. I don't care what it takes. Trade multiple first if we have to. But yeah. And then Jordan Love, I believe it was 4 interceptions or 3. It was a decent amount. Might have been 3 interceptions, 4 turnovers, because I know they fumbled the ball at one point. But all that to lose by 2 points, especially with Jordan Love returning and it being against the Vikings, very good. Nothing to really complain about. That's why I have them staying at 10. And you'll notice that a lot of teams who are losing right now, I am moving up because we're at that point in the season where teams we're still trying to figure out what teams are and what teams, are good, what teams are bad. So, I have the Packers staying at 10, and I don't know how good they are yet. However, they show so many flashes that I think they are a good team, and I think it's all going to depend on how long it takes for Jordan Love to feel comfortable with, his leg again. 9, we have the Seahawks down a spot. They had a valiant effort, 42-20. What was the score? 42-29. Lost against the Lions. These two teams seem to be perfect matches for each other. This is one of the better non-division rivals that we've seen, in the few years that's been going on. And what we need to talk about is that was the Seahawks' first loss. They haven't beaten anyone of major, praise. That's why I, even with them being undefeated up until this week, wasn't sold on them. And I am sold that they are a good team now because, yes, they have struggled against bad teams. However, we need to talk about that. It doesn't matter. A win is a win in the NFL, and that's just what happens. And the Seahawks, well, when they needed to go against a good team, although the score doesn't say it, that was a game that was back and forth. It just, resulted in the Seahawks not being able to stop that Lions offense, and, well, the Seahawks weren't able to keep up as they fell short. Number 8, we got the Commanders up 8 spots. I didn't think I'd be saying this at, this point in the season. Jane Daniels looks like it's the real deal. The Commanders look very scary, with Scary Terry as well. And, I mean, as it stands, they're winning the NFC East, and I wouldn't be surprised if by week 18 they won the East. They're beating teams that I didn't think they'd beat. Teams like the Cardinals, teams like the Bengals. Didn't think they'd beat either of those teams. And yet here we are, talking about the Commanders being 3-1, with Jane Daniels looking amazing. And, I mean, here they are at number 8. I'm officially sold on the Commanders. I think they are an elite team. And, well, they have the Browns next week, so there's a good chance they improve to 4-1. 7, we have the Bills down 5 spots. Embarrassing. I mean, do we even need to talk about this? They got blown out after they looked like arguably the best team in the league. And, well, looks like the Ravens found their weakness. That's all that needs to be said. We'll talk about that when we get to the Ravens. 49ers up 10 spots. The big thing about the 49ers is, yes, they beat a bad team in the Patriots, but it was dominant, and it's while the 49ers are not at their strongest. They're without CMC. They're having a bunch of players fighting through injuries right now and still playing. That deserves a lot of praise in itself. And I think the 49ers, when healthy, are arguably the best team. And yet here they are dominating with an injured team. I think they deserve to be at this number 6 spot. Number 5 up 10 spots is the Ravens. We'll talk about that game now. This was a game where I thought it was going to be such a good game. I thought they were going to be trading back and forth. And I thought it was going to be kind of like how the Lions-Seahawks game ended up, where it was a high-scoring offensive game. And it wasn't. It just wasn't. It was all Ravens. They held Josh Allen, didn't let him be able to escape on the run, were able to bring pressure, get there on defense in both coverage and pressure. And their offense just kind of scored immediately in the first quarter and never looked back. And, well, I think the Ravens just had a tough first game and maybe fell victim to the trap game against the Raiders, or were just looking ahead. And, well, here they are now, looking like they're the same team from last season. Number 4 is the Buccaneers. They're going to be going up 8 spots. The Buccaneers looked like they also did the same thing, where they probably thought the Broncos were bad, looked past them, preparation for the Eagles, and fell victim to the trap game. But if my theory is correct, it looks like that, looking ahead paid off, because they dominated against the Eagles, and that's why they're at number 4. The Buccaneers are looking like an unstoppable team besides 1 week, so we're not going to talk about it. Just let me prove my point. Baker Mayfield looking like a potential MVP candidate. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin finally both doing well on the same team during the same week. It's kind of felt like it's been one or the other, and, well, that game it was, they're finally becoming that 1-2 combo. And I just think the Buccaneers are that team. I praised them from the offseason. I know people were hyping up the Falcons, and I thought the Buccaneers were going to win that division. And here they are. So, suck it. Number 3, we have the Lions up a spot. Nice win over the Seahawks. They were not able to slow down on offense, as you saw, 42 points. Jameson Williams had a 70-yard touchdown. There was kind of players who were just doing everything. Sam Laporta, even though he didn't score, was getting consistent receptions. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tim Patrick. A bit of everything was going on. Even Jared Goff caught a receiving touchdown. David Montgomery showing why he, is arguably the best power back in the game. And I think the Lions, just had a very tough game against the Buccaneers. And I think these two teams are very evenly matched, and hence the Buccaneers won. And that's why I believe they're so close. Yes, the Buccaneers won that game, but I believe if these two teams played 10 times, it would honestly end in a 5-5 split. And the Lions just have a better resume. Number 2 is the Vikings up a spot. Number 1 is the Chiefs staying the same. the Vikings have been that team. They almost let it slip away against the Packers, but the key word there is almost, as they were able to hold on. And, I mean, they also just got comfortable. I mean, any team I feel like would when you're up 28-0 in the first half. And, I mean, everything was cooking. The Packers did a good job locking up Jefferson for the majority of the game, but because of that, they went to Jordan Addison, who, I mean, that just shows that just because you have one good receiver doesn't mean you can be a great team. And Jordan Addison being their second receiver, allows, even if Justin Jefferson's getting double teamed. What about Jordan Addison? I feel like everyone on that team just had a great game. And, well, so much so that they got comfortable in the second half. Almost let it slip away. But they didn't. And then the Chiefs at number 1. I mean, I said there was a chance the Bills would pass them, but of course the Bills lost, so. Same thing again, Chiefs. I mean, if the Vikings do well and you guys, struggle, could be talking a different ball game. But, I mean, the Chiefs are doing just enough to hold on to this one spot as they barely beat the Chargers. I hope you guys enjoyed. I did. I will see you guys next time where it will be predictions. And, well, I do believe this is where the season starts to get interested because this is kind of going to be the week where we start to see teams break away, both in the division, the conference, the playoffs, kind of start to divide from who has a chance and who doesn't. And plus, it's also the start of bye week, so, unfortunately, it's already week 5, and, you might not be able to see your teams play this Sunday or Thursday or Saturday or Monday, whatever day it may be. Goodbye. Hope you enjoyed.